Hello, mic check, 1, 2, 3. Welcome to Q&A. This is the podcast where we talked about like architects and displacement. I'm your host, Quan. I'm from Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam.
And I'm also your host, Ayesha from Jakarta, Indonesia. So me and Quan both come from cities that are shaped by water, colonial history, and rapid urbanization, as well as development, where displacement isn't a single event, but a continuous condition. And it is also a conversation that we should have continuously.
Today, we're walking with our guest, Oscar, through different sites in Sydney. And each of them tells stories of the people, the culture, what once belonged there, and what happens when belonging is replaced by capital.
Hi, I'm Oscar. I grew up in this area in inner city Sydney, on Gadi country. I guess this is my home in my lifetime, but obviously my history in this country is one of settler colonialism and migration. This place where in the suburbs of Redfern, Waterloo and Eveleigh, where we'll be walking today, have a long history of displacement from colonial times to today, where we see a rise in displacement based on capital and the enduring systems of colonialism and their links to the economy, race and class.
Yeah.
So since me and Quan are both from cities that have a history of displacement as well for a very long time, in this conversation that we're going to have, me and Quan, we're also going to reflect our own cities, like the Doi Canal settlements in Ho Chi Minh City and also the kampung of Muara Baru in Jakarta. In this podcast, we advocate for displacement communities, specifically post-displacement livelihood, resettlement areas. We advocate to have better policies, compensations, and better design for resettlement housing projects for displacement communities. Shall we continue our conversation?
Yes. So we're starting here in the block, Redfern, which is belonged to Aboriginal community prior to like 1970s, and later redeveloped under immense pressure. And Oscar, can you explain to us what has happened here?
Yeah. So basically the history of this area in modern history is in the 1970s, people from various First Nation groups were kind of settled here in the terrace houses, kind of illegally, through squatting and kind of squatting in existing houses. And through that process, they like the community really formed around these couple of streets and the wider Redfern area to the formation of a legitimate kind of housing company called the Aboriginal Housing Company, which then led to purchasing all of the terrace homes on Eveleigh Street, which is where we are now, and also the surrounding buildings, turning them into like community centres and various other services. So today the land is still owned by the Aboriginal Housing Company, but all the buildings were redeveloped in about 2010 to become a mix of not just Aboriginal housing but also student housing. Like there's a large student housing tower, and so it's become kind of a mixed community, which is contentious with the people who lived here before. Some people supported the development because some people had the idea that urban redevelopment was needed, but other people felt that they got displaced from their homes and weren't allowed to return once the development had been completed.
So I have a questions. Are the Aboriginal communities are still here, or where do they go after the development?
Yes, definitely a lot of the Aboriginal community is still here that has lived here for like generations, but some people were displaced and had to move to just various other places in Sydney. But there's still the presence of a lot of the First Nations run like health service, legal service, that is all still in Redfern, so the connection to the community is enduring. But yeah, I guess it's not really my place to speak on the perspectives of the First Nations community here, but I believe there's differing opinions as to what the redevelopment of the block meant.
I think the same things that are that happens in Vietnam and is happening at the moment, where there's at Doi Canal one of like long settlement, like informal settlement in Ho Chi Minh City, where people build like makeshift houses, like just from like aluminum roof and timber structures, and that's illegal settlement. And the government decided to like redevelop the area, and the opinions there is also different, because like it's also mixed, because like most of them also want to have like a better neighborhood, a better infrastructures, because the canal is polluted and it affects everyone's health. So they also wanted a better neighborhood for themselves. But I think they also worry because half of them, like the informal houses that are two banks of the canals, they are illegals and they aren't get any compensate or support to move out by the governments. And yeah, I think there's also like a lot of similarities like in these like areas.
I think in my hometown also, it happens. Like I think it's very similar to yours, Quan, because back home the Muara Baru Kampung is also like it's near the ocean. There's a lot of fishermen communities there, but at the same time, like their houses are getting flooded very badly, and they're also going to be displaced soon. And even though the government has plans to make a new neighborhood for them and everything, but like they don't really want to move because they spend their whole lives there, and also like if they do move, their business it's gonna change, and it's not easy.
Like it's a multi-dimensional aspect, like issue, right? So there's many elements that affects them. So we are all studying in Sydney, and our project is also about like displacements. Now, can I ask Oscar, so what drew you to study, like make this project about displacements? Because I also know that your thesis is also about these problems, right?
Yeah, I guess it's really, I'm always fascinated by it from a kind of personal standpoint, because displacement is such a, I know it's part of my own story as well, from like my family history, being Irish and being, a few generations ago being essentially displaced from their homeland due to settler colonialism, to then my own lifetime being here as essentially part of the settler colonial population in Australia, and just that the kind of movements of how displacement shapes the world throughout history, and then as an architect thinking about architecture's role in that process, which the more I've realized how like intrinsic architecture is in that process and how tied it is to that process, which is something that you don't really think about on a surface level, I guess. Public housing, so housing for low-income people, basically, and it's all like quite like 3-4 bedroom housing, so it's like families with kids mostly, and it's probably like it's got this estate has like a really high First Nations percentage living here. It's like maybe like 17.5% of this estate is like Aboriginal people, which is quite, compared to the national percentages, it's very high. And basically the government's trying to redevelop this whole, like knock down all of the houses and evict everyone against their wishes, and then rebuild big apartment buildings.
When did that start?
It's been going on for like 3 years now.
3 years?
Yeah.
So,
and they've been fighting against it and that's what those signs are all references to, the red and yellow signs. They're they're like protest signs.
but does the community say something about it?
Yeah.
Did they do a protest or?
Yeah, a lot. So yeah, there's a lot of community activism against the redevelopment, and so they have the organisation Action for Public Housing, who make those signs, and there's been protests here before. You can find pictures of them where they hold the big signs up, and they all the residents from different public housing estates come together to protest together. So like, it won't just be the residents here. Like, they're in solidarity with the people who live in Waterloo and Glebe and all the different places who are all being threatened kind of simultaneously. It's kind of been just ongoing for 3 years, and everyone here just lives in a state of like they don't know what the future holds for them, if you know what I mean. Like they don't know when they can just be told to leave at any point.
Yeah, so they live, like basically they're living in fear.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
exactly.
doesn't know like when's the next time
Yeah.
they move.
And they've got like kids in school who they don't know if they have to just move school, move to a whole nother area. So it could be like far away from here, and yeah, it's kind of a trend in the whole inner city area to they're trying to privatize all of these types of housing because it's become like a prime real estate area. So suddenly the land's worth a lot of money to private developers.
Well, that's awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did they make some any progress of due to the protests? Did the government change anything?
There was definitely a success in the protests because the demolition was meant to happen a long time ago, but it still hasn't happened. So they was successful in delaying it, but there's still just that uncertainty that's kind of... I think for now they have some kind of security, but the government has rezoned the area, which means that they're allowed to build bigger buildings here, which means they probably will at some point. But I guess I'm really interested in from an architectural perspective is how you could build the density and stuff into the estate. It's like this without evicting people and displacing people, which is possible. You can just reuse the houses as they are and build or just add other buildings onto the site. I don't know, there's a whole lot of inventive ways that you could increase the density and more housing without displacing people, but it's just, we just don't have a culture of that in the architecture in Australia, where we'd rather just knock everything down and restart again.
Do you know about like is there the community here, did they get any compensation for leaving, or they are basically evicted from their own houses? Because this is literally their house and their land, right? But from what you're telling is they're being like forcibly moved away from their house. So is there any compensation?
No, as far as I'm aware, there's no compensation. They just have they get a certain amount of notice to move out, and then it's up to them to find new housing somewhere, like probably through the public system still, but they don't get, like, they still have to find their own housing afterwards. And then they'll often say things like, oh, you can be rehoused in the new development when it's done, but that's like,
How long does that
that
take?
takes
Yeah.
like 10 years maybe,
Yeah.
you know, because that, like, so a lot of people, if they move, they're going to be moving for good. Like, they're not going to come back here once they've set up home somewhere else for 5-10 years or whatever.
Yeah, because there's a level of like uncertainty in those, like there's a differences of like 10-year period.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, like more that I think of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are the houses that you talk about are the ones that are gonna be demolished? Is it these ones? Or the ones behind us?
These houses
Okay.
and they were all built only in like 1987 or something, so they're not that old compared to all the rest of the houses in the suburb are all like terrace houses that have been there since even earlier, most of them like 1900s, like early 1900s. And they would never dream of demolishing the houses on the private market, you know, like you just can't do that because people would, but for some reason it's just seen as okay to just demolish these houses even though they're at the exact same density.
Yeah, because to me this looked like perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Like beautiful house,
Yeah.
right? It's like it's still new and it's still like look very, very lively.
Yeah. And there's like a really strong like community bond here. Like most of the residents have lived here for like over 20 years.
Yeah.
And because often it gets like there's this myth that like public housing is like a transient place where people come and go, but that's not the case at all, especially here. Like some of these people have been here their whole lives. Like one of my friends that I went to school with was from here, and he lived there for his whole life from a baby with 3 siblings and his mum. And like they knew like everyone on the street. Like it's like a stronger kind of community spirit than most of the private housing has.
That's so interesting.
And it's also kind of like the perfect place for families to live because you're right in the middle of the city with access to all the services and the transport. Like you got Redfern station just there, which is, you know, you can go anywhere via train. All these things that like, I don't know, it just makes sense, I think, for this type of housing to be here.
Yeah.
For whether it's for families or for like elderly people, like a lot of the nearby public housing developments have a very high percentage of elderly people, and for the same reasons they need to be close to services and public transport and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think like you mentioned earlier about like does there any public housing like projects in Vietnam, and I think there's also similar problems with this sort of projects because like for the new resettlements doesn't like acquire those needs of the community is supposed to like habitat it, right? Because when they move out, they lost like not only like their houses, they lost their community, right, and like their kinship as well, and like maybe social economic aspect as well, because most of like their jobs are like around here. And for example, like in Asia, in Southeast Asia, most of the people are like informal business, like they are vendors selling groceries like in front of their house. So like by moving away, they lost like those income. Yeah, and most of them are like low income household, and they don't know what if they got compensate. They don't know what to do with those money, right? So they just leave it in the bank, and by the time that the settlements or like the redevelopment are finished, it's too late for them to buy a house, because due to inflation, is like the prices of housing is going up like twice. Is like there's impossible for them to buy like a new like home. And another thing is I think it's infrastructure as well, as she also mentioned, because like some of the areas is near train stations, bus stations as well, and metro station. And by moving away, they aren't sure of those infrastructures that are available for them, right?
It can throw your whole like routine and life, the things that you rely on, just get removed suddenly. And
do you want to add anything about it, Ayesha? Or do you have any question?
I kind of have a question, but it's for you, Quan. It's like the one that in your hometown, like the project that you just said. Like, is it a government project, or is it like the new housing for people that needs to move? Is it a government, or is it not?
So at the moment, the project is still the removal of the site of the informal housing, and the cleaning, the embankment of the canal, and also the like upgrading the current infrastructure of the place. And it is state-led project, so the governments are like claims that by doing this, they will improve the livelihood of the neighbor, and improve also like the health problems. But to me, they are removing all of the neighbors, all of the community away from the site. So like, who would benefit from this? And there's a risk of like gentrifications as well. And marginalization as well.
I guess it's always interesting with those like urban redevelopment projects, is you always get fed like the top down perspective, like this place needs to be fixed or something, but there's never like they never center the voices of the people who actually live there. I feel like that's from here to the places that in Vietnam or anywhere in the world, it's always the same story. Like there's never that centrality of the people who are actually been affected by the development. Like, I don't know, it's interesting trying to work out like how you can center those voices. Like, because there's already like activist movements across the world, but like they don't actually get like elevated to or like heard by the people who are making these claims about their homes.
I think that's why that's why I also asked, like, is it a state-led, or because I guess we as architects, we can, like put our hands in that. And I think it just, there's an example back in Jakarta that I think there is an architect who he does like make like a social house, public house that also centers like these voices. And it, like, to me, the project is quite successful. It's not the target isn't like the site that I am focusing for this project. So my site for this project is called Muara Baru, but the settlements that this architect like back home successfully like moved them into like a housing. It's called what's it called? Kampung Kunir, I think. Yeah, I mention him in class a lot. His name is Kamil Muhammad, and his practice is like very community centered, and I think he doesn't really do much state led projects as well. So I think it's really interesting. This conversation is very important, especially for us architects, and maybe in the future we can do something about it,
One of the problem for like state-led project is like there are shareholder, that there are people that who benefits from those kind of projects, and maybe some of those organizations or group of people like doesn't align with the community where at the place, which could also lead to those kind of problems, right? Yeah, because there's also an architect firms in Vietnam. He's also a famous architect in Vietnam as well. His name is Hoang Thúc Hào. His firm is 1+1 larger than 2. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think you've shown me the work before. Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah. So like I think I might be wrong, but I think I heard him talk about one of his like first project was to like find a community with like in the northern of Vietnam, they are doing like potteries, and he contact those community and basically create a project where there is like a center for the community to do their work, like pottery and stuff, and also share like a common like workshop. Also there's housing around like the area which is also like ties into like the culture and the activity of the place. And basically after the project is finished, the community thrive. Yeah, and I think it's important to like one of the aspect is like the reason why he was doing this is he was trying to align with the community needs.
I think that's where the success comes from as well, right? Yeah.
And I guess that's how architects can actually have an impact on these things, if by kind of even just proposing these kinds of design strategies, we can say like this development, the way that the government's planning to do it, we don't think it's suitable, so like here's a better option. And like if you have lots of those counter proposals coming through, which very rarely get put through because people would rather work with the the developer or the government. They'd rather work with them than like come from the bottom up and say here's a better way to do it. And then like if enough architects would presenting those ideas, then they might actually get built. And we can do that. Like we can spend out, like the officers can spend time to do proposals like this in the same way that they entered competitions for free basically, but have like a more like real world impact on people's futures and lives.
I also think one of the problem is most of the architect firms are also trying to survive.
Yeah,
Like also
yeah.
trying to feed people.
Yeah.
Like also trying to feed their employees.
Yeah,
And like they probably like sometimes it's better for them to like stick like align with the the client more than the community, because there's more like a higher chance for having their project going through.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's all the same cycle. It's the game where you don't want to take risks because there's not as much money in taking risks.
True.
But that's why I do think that's why I feel like, because obviously it's usually like more like emerging architects that are interested in these kinds of community-led things, but they're also the architects who have less capital or influence or money. So like there is a thing where like maybe we could put pressure on the architects that are already highly successful and don't need to worry so much. Like hold them accountable for the projects that they make.
Yeah.
Like someone who's like a huge, national architect, like do they really need to be taking on a project that displaces people? Like when they, they're not relying on, they're at the point where they can choose their own work, but they still take on these projects. And I don't know, I just think there has to be like some kind of accountability behind those decisions that are made, like when the resources can be, maybe spread in a more thoughtful way, I guess.
Yeah.
To put it nicely, but yeah.
It's cool. So now we're at Waterloo South, a site marked for redevelopment under Sydney Metro project, and the public housing towers will be replaced by mixed-use development. Oscar, can you go in further about this project?
Yeah, so basically, this entire housing estate has been marked for redevelopment. At the moment, it's mainly Waterloo South, which is right near where we are right now, where I believe they've already given eviction notices to a big number of residents, maybe 600 or so people. And basically it's very, very similar situation to the Eveleigh housing that we were just at, where it's been an ongoing battle since about 2018, so a very long battle for this area. But now they've finally kind of started the process where people will actually be getting evicted against their will in about 6 months from now, I think. And yeah, basically there's a whole lot of people that are going to have to find their own housing somewhere else, and essentially this whole community is getting broken apart for another 10-15 years of redevelopment, where the lands will be privatised, so it won't be public land anymore, and the residents have been told they're allowed to return, but again, it's the same situation where they'll have to move somewhere else for at least 10 years, and then, just the same situation of uncertainty and kind of unnatural realigning of the community.
Do you know how long this building has been standing? Because it seems pretty old. Maybe not that old, but yes, it seems pretty lived in, because when I see the buildings, on the balconies there are a bunch of plants. They're big ones, over there, really big ones. So I'm assuming people live for a long time already. Do you know how long?
Yeah, I think these ones that are behind us were built in the 1960s, I think. and then some of 70s or 60s in that kind of modernist era. Then some of the smaller flats, which are near where we are now, are even older. They were the first ones that were built, which were I think in the 50s, early 50s, and they're the ones that are getting demolished first are the smaller brick walk-up buildings, and then these big towers will be next in maybe 10 years from now, I think. So it's kind of like a staged demolition. They're not like the whole place isn't getting demolished at once.
But I know that the locals here already been informed of the project, but did they have any support like moving out?
No, I don't think so. I think it's the same situation where you just have a certain notice to find your own housing. Yeah. And yeah, so again, lots of people have to move very far away from this area where there's so many kind of like community, like there's a whole community centered around this estate, and Redfern and Waterloo in general, and yeah, people will be moved to, I guess, wherever the government provides housing for them, which could be an hour away from here, for example, or it could be close, but it's just a bit random. Like you don't really get any say in it.
I think I have read like an article about this area where they interview like a Vietnamese man, a Vietnamese citizen here.
Yeah.
So he's also talks about a little bit of the situations that they are like soon to be evicted,
Yeah.
like to move out of their house, but like they didn't sure like when are they gonna move out, and if they are promised like a spot here in the new development, but they didn't told him like exactly the time, so like so for now he doesn't know when are he's moving out, and when he's moving out he's not in the next time he's like moving again, so it's create like a state of like anxiety in his life. It's also he has a family to raise, older parents to take care of.
I got a good like related to that is I was listening to, there's a podcast by some local residents, or one, Lorna Munro and Joel Sherwood Smith, who are both from the Redfern Waterloo area. They're both First Nations people, and they were talking about how like a large percentage of the Waterloo Estate's population is migrant people as well, many of whom don't speak English as their first language, and like the communication with the eviction and stuff has been really like difficult to like people. It was essentially like it was just started with like letters in mailboxes, and then like a lot of the residents who don't speak or read English that well didn't really understand what was happening, for example. So, and they rely on just their neighbours telling them what's happening and keeping them updated on the different processes. So that's another thing that like, I guess it's like the institutionalization of it all, where it's just like you get a letter and that's official notice, but then in reality people don't actually understand what or when is happening.
Yeah, it's so sad, I feel, especially like thinking about the migrants as well. Like they probably come here, like it's not easy to come here, and they like, I don't know, like the journey they went through, and then they're faced with another like displacement.
Like these communities possibly already being displaced from another place, and now they are having a risk of being displaced again. And I think this is one of like the few places that like I've seen that remind me of like Ho Chi Minh City. I think it's because of like how the architecture here is resemble a lot to the apartment back in Ho Chi Minh City, which is like modern architect and those. But like uh, in Vietnam, most of the old apartments are like not renovated. They are rented to be like coffee shop or yeah, like if you visit like Ho Chi Minh City, you notice, right? And I is there any proposal like buildings to being redeveloped or like renovated into like another um like building, or like just instead of like having it demolish in the entire like area?
Yeah, there's been a few proposals from, like, architects have actually made counter proposals because this site's so much in the public eye. So there's the architect's office who are based in Melbourne who are very interested in reusing public housing buildings and repairing them. They have done a small proposal for Waterloo here. And I also believe some French architects, Lacaton and Vassal, I think they're called, who do similar things in France, did a small exhibition about Waterloo and reusing the buildings as well. So they're definitely, like, the potential for that to happen exists, and like architects have shown that, but the actual plan that is currently going ahead is to just completely demolish every building, and just start over again, basically.
Like from my perspective, it's clearly still a nice building. Like to me, it's look nice, and probably there's a lot of elements that we can like reuse, like the structure elements and the balcony, and like we probably can like increase density, creating more like spaces like that are qualified enough to like as public housing. And like for some reason there aren't any. Do you know why?
Yeah, I don't know why. I think part of it is just it's the push to just privatize land, and then I think by like maintaining the buildings doesn't fit the kind of private developer agenda, and like they want to, I don't know, I guess there's also kind of like a demonization of this style of building in the in like the media and the public eye, where it's seen as like not a you know
like it's not homey, it's
it's become associated with just a certain era of history which is considered outdated, like the modernist kind of brutalist public housing style. But obviously, like, it doesn't mean that they should just be demolished, because you can't ignore the fact that it's all like embodied carbon, and there's a lot of concrete in there, a lot of concrete and bricks in all of these buildings. And I mean, to be honest, like the buildings they replace them with will probably look even worse, if like the rest of Sydney is anything to go by. But yeah, I really don't know what the obsession is with demolition. It's just, I think the developers are obsessed with having a shiny new thing to market. I think it's all about marketing.
Yeah, it's better for marketing.
Yeah.
Better for like having new like tenants.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they need to make, they want to make flash renders of the new neighborhood, and the current image doesn't suit that agenda, basically. Yeah.
So, you kind of mentioned earlier about like the community, they're being displaced. There's like form a community between Redfern, South Eveleigh, South Waterloo, and they kind of have like a solidarity, right? Um, so um, so I guess the question is, what does it look like in like in those kind of projects, and what do you think it could like actually have an impact, or what does it look like?
Like in terms of the like redevelopment projects, or I guess it's the same thing where like there's different suburbs, but it is all basically one community, like with kinship ties and stuff. So, which has been built over decades and decades, like this whole area. Like you've got families dispersed throughout those different suburbs, whether it's Redfern, Eveleigh, Waterloo, Surrey Hills, Glebe, Woolloomooloo, which are all in the city of Sydney, LGA. Like they're all kind of tied to each other, and they're all geographically close to each other, which is the most important thing, I think, because people can visit their family members and stuff on foot or quick trips, and once you start to break that apart, then people are put on other ends of the city and you lose that support network, and kind of like the neighborhoods have been built around these estates and the services that exist, and then I think you kind of like disrupt in like a really complex network that exists.
So right now we were from Miller's Point, Barangaroo, and right now we're sitting in the rocks. And behind us is a project by BVN. What kind of project is it, Oscar?
Basically, so this is the Sirius building, which was designed in 1970 something, I think, as a public housing building. So basically like rehousing people who are already living in the area in older public housing stock that was sold off or demolished. So it was in like the very modernist style, kind of like the building we were just at Waterloo, but I guess in a more striking kind of fashion. But now the current project by BVN is they essentially just reuse the existing building after there was a big campaign to save the building because it was going to get demolished originally. But part of that process was the privatisation of the site, which meant all the public housing residents got evicted, and it was a very big topic in the media and in the architecture world. And although the building got maintained, the residents got evicted, and they essentially did some minor interventions, like little balcony extensions and interior refurbishment of the existing building. But now these units are, multi-million-dollar houses rather than low-income housing as they originally were.
Yeah, I think this building is like an example of like how we can like increasing the density without like demolishing the whole like area, but like it's also like an example of like the risk of gentrifications, because while doing that they accidentally turn it into like a luxury luxury housing for and by doing that they also like push out like the community that are living here as well. And yeah, it's both of like a good thing for like in terms of like architecture, but like a bad example of like resettlement like projects. Like a good example for renovation project, but like a bad example for like resettlements. Like
Yeah, I guess building on that, like it shows us that it's very highly possible to just refurbish existing buildings. But the big question is how, like, why can't we do it without evicting people, or like displacing people for long periods of time? And obviously there's a big part of that is just the way that property is, like the private property system, like how projects get funded. So that they would argue that they could only do this because they had money to sell it off on the private market. But I guess with like, in theory, if the government was spending the same money that they once did on housing, they could refurbish these buildings, just like they built this building once upon a time. And yeah, it can be funded with grants and stuff like that. I think like architects can start looking into the power of grants, for example, to I don't know.
so so the people in this area, do we have any information of like where they went? Is there any research about like post displacement?
I'm not entirely sure. I think I've read some things in articles. I think they tried to rehouse people in the general city of Sydney area because there was a lot of elderly residents and things like that. But it would have been the same thing where some people ended up far away, different cities even maybe, or the outskirts of Sydney. Definitely not rehoused in the immediate area because almost all of the public housing in this whole area got sold off, whether it's this big building or the old workers' terraces that we just saw throughout the Rocks and Miller's Point.
Going back to Miller's Point, because like as we can see, after redevelopment projects, those two areas becomes like a touristy destinations, like full of like tourist activity, tourism, restaurant, bars, and I think which is the same thing that's are happening in Ho Chi Minh City. Like some of the redevelopment projects are happening in sites where there are like cultural activities such as like markets, like floating markets. It's okay.
Thank you.
Like floating markets, like people trade on their boats, and they been riding their boats from like the southern cities to like Ho Chi Minh City to sell goods, and like the states like notice and acknowledge this is like a cultural aspect that we need to keep, but in the process of doing that, they turn it into like a tourist activities, and where are like they open kiosk and like hire store, which is like increasing the price of like all of their like goods, and which is not benefits the community at all, except for like large businesses and large company.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's like a real international thing. It's like the commodification of like working class culture and turning it into like benefiting from the worlds that were organically created, but then turning them into like a something to just profit off or something, with no actual protection for the actual people who were part of that world, which is interesting. The similarities between Australia, Vietnam, everywhere basically.
Yeah. So is there any like similar thing happening in Indonesia, Ayesha?
I think when it comes to Jakarta, it's not as much. I mean, if we're talking about tourism in Jakarta, it's not that big. Yes, there is some areas, especially like in the CBDs, like they get gentrified a lot, and yeah, like in Jakarta, if you go there, there's so many different worlds. Like there are informal settlements, and then like 5 minutes walking, you would see grand hotels and like bars, restaurants that are just crazy expensive. So it's very interesting. But when it comes to like a lot of displacement and getting gentrified, I do think it happens more in Bali, because especially like tourism is really strong there. It's quite an issue in Bali, like with the locals. Not sure like how many people know internationally, but like within the locals, it's a huge like deal, and like we talk about it a lot. As much as it is good for the economy, and like people are very nice and very welcoming, but there are times where the locals just get wronged a lot, and yeah.
I think I have a questions. This is the questions that one of our tutor, Matt. Hi Matt, if you are watching this, asked us like 1 or 2 weeks before, like if we have like unlimited resource, unlimited money, unlimited like power, what would we do like for like resettlement projects, or like to like displacement? So like in my opinions, like if I have like unlimited power and like an unlimited resource, I would start by doing like keeping the community in like stay in their place, like which is their site, their home. Yeah, let's just start by keeping the community stay in place of the project, and then trying to find like a way to support like their like community and keeping them alive first, which is, and then start thinking about upgrading the like living conditions.
Yeah, exactly. I think the most important thing is, I feel like development's always obsessed with moving people around and like changing things. For like, sometimes you just need to leave things as they've kind of more naturally come to be, I guess. Like, obviously everything's been altered. Like, these buildings aren't like natural things, but they, over time, people take ownership of these spaces, and you can't like, and like communities have formed in a real organic way, and then they just get torn apart in like in a second, like, which is just, like, obviously it's natural for people to move around, but not in that way. So yeah, I think the most important thing is to kind of let people like decide their own kind of, let people stay somewhere if they want to, if that's how they've, like if they want to move away, then that can be on their own terms, which people will move around, but yeah.
Yeah, going back to that question, I think I would also answer kind of like you, similar to Kwan's answer. I would definitely like for like the communities to just stay there, especially like they've been there for years. They built their business, their families, and then I think what's interesting about in Jakarta is that a lot of like the site that I'm interested in, they are at risk at being displaced because of a natural disaster, like flooding.
A
guess-
natural phenomenon.
A natural phenomenon, yes. But at the same time, like there are reasons why, like the area floods so much. It's not just like that it rains so much, but it's also like if we trace back to colonial times, it actually like the colonization actually does affect that, like the building of the canals and how the water system is neglected by the colonizers, and then it's affected 100 years later. But still, like I think if I would like have all the money and all the opportunities and all the power, like I would definitely just make them stay there, but just like make their lives, I mean, better houses, floating houses, maybe like really nice ones, and that can accommodate them. And I like what you said as well, Oscar, like people moving is really natural and happens like for so many years, but it like if I don't know, it's just really sad just hearing all these like displacement stories, so
Yeah, like in my opinion, because like those state-led government project, state-led project, government projects, etc. Like the government made a lot of promises to the community, and like sometimes the promise is kept, but sometimes they just forgot. Because like the power system is changed, or the regime is changed over time, because like those large scale projects took a really long time to finish, right? And like in those period of time, a lot of things can happen, and I think like government should be held accountable for their promise as well. Like they must have a contract between them or like the community or something to hold them accountable. And I think one of the issues that's that happened in the past in Vietnam is one of like the new currently new city in Ho Chi Minh City. It's all over District 2. It's across the river, like in District 1, and when you look across the river, it's like you can see like the new development. And
big building.
yeah, and before that, in 2018, it was like it was also a slum, and people like the governments are was planning to like redevelop the area into like a new cities to reduce the pressure on like District 1, and like they lost the master plan of the site, like the planning of the site completely lost, and then they don't know, like I could be wrong for my like information, but this things was happening in 2018 where people get evicted away from their house back in District 2 in Thủ Thiêm area, and when they move to the other area, they sort of got alienated by those neighbors because like they were strangers, like they don't know who they are, and they don't know like if like the new neighbor could trust them or not, because they've been there for like their entire life for like 50 years, and then all of a sudden they have to move out. And I did read like an interview where like he basically talks about his life before when he was in the site, where like he was sharing the electricity with like his neighbor, and also like whenever he's hungry, he just like, because they're like next to like the river, he just like catch some fish, and then that's his dinner for his whole family, and they don't have to worry about like food or income. But now they are evicted, or like they evicted from their house, and there's nothing they can do about it. And like the government's, this is also like part of the government's fault as well, because they lost like the master plan for like urban planning for the area. They lost it. Like they actually lost it.
Physically lost
they physically lost it. Like I don't know how it's possible, but like they physically lost it.
Put it in the bin, actually.
Yeah, like I have no idea how, but like it's kind of like ironic, funny, like not funny, but like it's horrible thing.
How can design education prepare us to challenge displacement narrative in practice? What do you think, Oscar?
I guess kind of maybe like a lot of the things that we already do engage with at our uni, for example, in an academic sense, I think are already on the right track. Like we're often encouraged to kind of center people and community in our projects. Like that's something that's pushed a lot more than it has in previous generations of architecture education. I feel like the hardest thing though is translating that to real life practice, like because we all like go through the degree like caring about the community and stuff, but then when it comes to actually like I guess in practice, like we all graduate and then we're just working for some like older generation of architects, and then we just lose all the agency that we thought we could take into the profession, which doesn't have to be the way. Like we do have agency still. I think that's the most important thing, is to remember to try and use the agency that we do have, and not try and just be silent or be powerless. Like we can influence our future employers like in as much as we can. And
I agree. I really value like what I learned from uni as well, like how it was very different from what I learned in bachelor's, like how shifting the focus to people, more like communities, like marginalized voices, and how architecture can do that. And it's also like something that I will hopefully that I can use in practice, like especially like back home. I think like in Jakarta, I don't think there's enough practices that do center around community. I only know like maybe one or two, and even like I know one from another city in Bandung, and that's it. Like I can't really name more than 3, I think, for now. But yeah, so hopefully there's gonna be some opportunities to do that, because I think especially in my hometown, I feel like it's very needed. It's very needed. I'm just a bit sick of architecture being just for like rich, the elites.
Like for me, I think is like design students need to have more like experience, like real life experience, and they have to like go through this experience themselves, because like in this subject advocacy, we are touching this subject because is related
Oh,
to.
you can go.
Yeah, you can go. Yeah, what am I saying? Real life experience, because like in this subject of advocacy, we choosing this like topic because it's somehow related to us, and what we seeing like close to us like every single day in like my hometown, your hometown, or like Oscar
Yeah.
hometown is very personal, and I think it is like one of like the correct way to be like just to be grounded and like go from like bottoms up, not from like top down. Yeah, I think this is a good wrap up questions for our uh, Q&A podcast.
Yeah, so that's a wrap up on the first episode of Q&A. Thank you, Oscar, for being a guest.
I'm hoping that this will like continue, like have like a quarter like things in like our like career. So we're happy to have you visiting us again, like in the future, if possible.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Reunion.
Goodbye. Anything like architect related?
So let's just treat it as like a final segment.
Okay, you
Should I start? Okay. For our final segment, I want to ask you, what's your hot take?
My hot take was there should be more public housing.
Okay.
Like, because everyone has like a bad impression about like public housing, right? Because like when we visit those sites before, like some sites are like kind of like sketchy. Like, but like I think if we have more and more and more and more public house, it became like a normal thing, and it evens out.
Yeah.
Right,
So,
yeah.
So normalize
Like normalize public housing.
public housing.
Yeah,
That's the take.
yeah, that's the take. Like, if we have more and more and more, like, what if everything is public housing, then nothing is public housing?
It's just housing.
Yeah, it's just housing.
Okay. Another way of housing.
Yeah.
All right.
That's true.
True. Okay, ending.